Chapter 3297. Next, of course, was to search for the Olympian treasures in the ruins. After this war, the Olympian gods had fallen and Mount Olympus had collapsed. But some treasures wouldn't be destroyed. Frigga glanced at the young people behind her. The war of the gods is over. We used you. Now, in return, you can search for the treasures or power of the gods. Right now, everyone was still shocked by the war that had exceeded their imagination. Fortunately, Chun Zhao's group didn't plan to burn the bridge after crossing it. Of course, their abilities meant that they wouldn't be able to gain much here. Chun Zhao's group was searching by plundering. These young people were really exploring. After all, there were insurmountable chasms everywhere. Everywhere was filled with hidden, catastrophic energy. The land that had just gone through a war was still filled with hidden dangers. It might not be much for the participants of the War of the Gods, but for them, it was fatal danger. Chun Zhao found the Thor spear. Even though Zeus was dead, the spear was still filled with divinity and the power of lightning. Chun Zhao, give that to me. I'll trade something else for it, 23rd Blood Mary said. Oh, I remember that your divine right isn't lightning, right? What do you want it for? Did you forget that I obtained Zeus' divine soul? What do you plan to do? I realized that the path of becoming a god isn't worth my attention. I'm researching another path. In fact, the 23rd generation Blood Mary felt that the path to godhood was too weak compared to the other three monsters. Chun Zhao's power system existed for battle. She couldn't compare to someone like Zhang Tianyi who used Dharma as a foundation and then walked his own path. Even Bifla was a latecomer. Of course, Bifla's path couldn't be replicated. He'd used his centuries of knowledge to get to where he was today. That was why he could catch up so quickly. He was even catching up to Zhang Tianyi. 23rd Blood Mary didn't have a choice, so she took a huge detour. She walked the path of becoming a god. But she soon realized something. The speed limit was already on this path, and the end was right in front of her. Other than allowing her to live a long time, she no longer pursued the mysteries of magic. 23rd Blood Mary wasn't just a strong person. She had always been curious about power and mysteries. It was a road that had no new ideas, and the end could already be seen. It couldn't satisfy her at all, so she chose to find a new path, a path that was suitable for him, a path that could catch up to them. This battle had already exposed many problems. The Olympian gods were also deities. Although they were weak, it was also proof of this. Compared to freaks like Chun Zhao, Zhang Tianyi, and Bifla, they were nothing. They were too weak. He was also too weak. This was also the reason why she was determined to open up a new path for herself. In the end, Chun Zhao traded with 23rd Blood Mary. Then, the search continued. There were still quite a number of divine souls and divine treasures left here. A broken fragment of the divine kingdom. He even found an orb that contained a complete soul of Athena, although it was hidden very well. But Chun Zhao still managed to dig it out. The old dark serum seeped into every crevice. Even palaces hidden deep underground could be infiltrated by Chun Zhao. If an ordinary person had found this orb, they would have died. Athena could take over the body of an ordinary person. Then she would find a chance to recover her divine power and body. But after Chun Zhao found her, Athena couldn't do anything. What a joke. She couldn't do anything to Chun Zhao under normal circumstances. Not to mention Athena, who only had a soul left. They searched for 10 days. Everyone basically made a lot of money. Of course, the youngsters weren't so lucky. But to make it up to them, Chun Zhao and the other three still compensated those who didn't get anything. Back in Los Angeles, life was peaceful again. Frigga still came to teach the two kids every day. Chun Zhao was refining the chaotic energy. As the chaotic energy was refined, it turned into clear air and entered the small world. The laws of the small world became clearer and more complete. Chun Zhao's small world was a world of flames. But now, the flames were buried under the ground. This energy also brought life to the earth. The earth was changing by itself. The world was changing. The stars moved. The earth was turning into a ball, a giant planet. Of course, the so-called giant was only relative to humans. Compared to a real planet, it was just a grain of rice. Chun Zhao didn't think that his body would produce a planet with a diameter of 100 kilometers. According to scientific standards, 100 kilometers wasn't even a planet. Half of the flames were hidden inside the planet. The other half gathered in the sky, forming a sun. It revolved around the planet. Yes, it wasn't that the planet revolved around the sun. Instead, the sun revolved around the planet. Chun Zhao named the planet in his body the primeval star. Outside the primeval star and the sun was chaos. When Chun Zhao injected life into it, the primeval star started reproducing. For Chun Zhao, it might only be an instant. But for the primeval star, decades had passed. Chun Zhao suddenly felt that the primeval star or the small world was the same as the river diagram. They could both make Chun Zhao feel the separation of time. If that was the case, was the river diagram someone else's small world? The more Chun Zhao thought about it, the more likely it seemed. The river diagram was the treasure of the great goddess Niwa. In that case, it was very likely that this legendary ancestor of the human race was in existence that was at least at his level. Of course, she would only be stronger and greater than him. Chun Zhao didn't think that he could compare to goddess Niwa. Even he couldn't compare to goddess Niwa, turning the small world into a divine artifact. After a day of cultivation, Fei Lai also went home. "Darling, prepare a light dinner for me today. I don't have an appetite." "Okay." Chun Zhao looked at Fei Lai. "Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Let me take a look." "No, I just don't have an appetite," Fei Lai said. Just then, the TV broadcasted an urgent piece of news. A huge magic array appeared in the center of Los Angeles. At the same time, a magic array appeared on the screen. It was above the skyscrapers. At the same time, Chun Zhao's phone rang. "President, did you see the news?" "Yes, I did. Do you know what's going on?" "Not yet. I'm bringing people over now." Chapter 3298. West had already rushed to the scene with his men. At the same time, he had sealed off the scene. However, they could only seal off the road. From a distance, they could still see the inverted magic array in the sky. Moreover, the American media was not so obedient. It was obviously big news. So, several helicopters were hovering in the distance, filming the scene. Everyone raised their heads and looked at the huge magic array in the sky. "Can you find the center of the magic array?" "I can't. This magic array doesn't seem to have a center." "How can it not have a center?" "It's a magic array," West said. If they couldn't find the center, they couldn't find the person who released the magic array. Looking up at the sky, Helios frowned. Such a huge magic array was rare. But they couldn't sense any mana fluctuations from it. It was very strange. Logically speaking, such a large-scale magic array should have terrifying mana fluctuations. However, the inverted magic array in the sky was more like a high beam of light shining in the sky. "Be careful. There's a change." Just then, the magic array in the sky began to change. Gradually, a black egg emerged from the magic array. The black egg was just showing. Everyone tensed up. After all, they didn't know what was going on. Moreover, things had gotten out of control. The media had already exposed it. The black egg slowly fell from the magic array. It was a huge black egg about 10 meters tall. The black egg slowly fell to the ground, and the magic array in the sky disappeared. Everyone approached the black egg carefully. The black egg didn't react. No monster crawled out of the egg. Everyone was at a loss. "Mr. West, what do we do now?" "Move this thing away first." "Move it away? How to move it?" Gaia, in his dragon form, didn't move. The huge black egg just floated there, but it seemed to weigh more than 1,000 pounds. Helios summoned the corpse demon refined by the abyss demon. Still, the huge black egg couldn't be moved. "No, let's see if we can destroy the egg." Everyone tried to destroy the black egg again, but they still couldn't. No matter what kind of attack they used, it seemed to be ineffective against the egg. They worked from afternoon to night. "There's nothing we can do." "No, we really can't do it." "What is this thing?" "Looks like we can only call the chairman." Everyone was helpless. Since they couldn't solve this problem, now, he could only ask Chun Zhao for help. After all, it had already affected the lives of the citizens. If the black egg remained here, the area would have to be sealed off. This wasn't some desolate wilderness. This was the center of the city. Even they couldn't seal off this area forever. Furthermore, no one knew what was going on with the black egg. Was there any danger? If the lockdown is lifted, once something happened, it was very likely to cause great damage or death. Even they couldn't bear this responsibility. Wes picked up his phone and dialed Chun Zhao's number. Hello, President. It's Fei Lai, Fei Lai said. Chen's already asleep. That's weird. He usually picks up the phone as soon as it rings. Why is he sleeping so soundly today? Fei Lai, can you help us wake up the president? We have something urgent to talk to him about. Fei Lai thought for a moment and said, All right. Honey, wake up. Chun, wake up. West is looking for you. Fei Lai tried for a long time, but Chun Zhao still wouldn't wake up. Sorry, West. I can't wake him up. Fei Lai was a bit worried. Did something happen to Chun Zhao? Chun Zhao had never been like this before. Fei Lai wasn't from the spiritual world, but the people around her were all spiritualists. She'd also interacted with many people and things in the spiritual world. So, she still knew about spiritualists at Chun Zhao's level. Basically, their senses were very powerful. Even if they were asleep, they could still sense their surroundings. There was no situation where they couldn't be woken up. But now, Chun Zhao just couldn't wake him up. Can you call someone over? I'm a bit worried about Chun. West was confused. The matter here hadn't been resolved yet. Chun Zhao was in trouble again. But now, he could only go over to see what was going on with Chun Zhao. When they arrived at Chun Zhao's house, Fei Lai brought West and the others to the bedroom. Everyone tried to wake Chun Zhao up, but Chun Zhao was really asleep. They couldn't wake him up at all. Heartbeat is normal. Temperature is normal. Breathing is normal. The president's body is normal. That's the most abnormal part, Gaia said. Even in my current state, my breathing and heartbeat are very different from normal people. Chun Zhao is so much stronger than me. He can't still maintain a normal temperature, heartbeat, and breathing. West shook his head. The president adjusted himself. He's always like this. Adjusted himself? Like this? Why? The president said that this is a way to control his power. Because he's too strong, he has to get used to his state more precisely. Controlling his body is also a type of regular training. So he's still like this? That means he hasn't lost control of his body. If he's really unconscious, then this control should disappear. West nodded. But I don't know why the president isn't waking up. Harold thought for a moment and said, Should we call Norma over? She has a way to enter people's dreams. Maybe she can find out about the president's current condition. West shook his head. It's useless. Norma can't enter the president's dream. The difference between them is too great. Even if she can enter the president's dream, she can't wake him up. The gap between them can't be bridged. What do we do now? Are we going to find a doctor in this situation? A doctor can't solve the problem either. We have to figure out what's wrong with the president first. West looked at Fei Lai, who had a worried look on her face. Fei Lai, does the president have any symptoms today? Everything was normal before dinner. After dinner, Chen kept watching the news on TV. It's about you guys dealing with a huge black egg in the city. But halfway through, he suddenly said he was sleepy and went to sleep. West noticed what Fei Lai said. She said that Chun Zhao was sleepy. This was a big problem. Would Chun Zhao be sleepy? If Chun Zhao didn't want to sleep, he definitely wanted to sleep. But it was ridiculous to say that he was sleepy. Chapter 3299. Just when they couldn't come to a conclusion, Chun Zhao suddenly opened his eyes. Why are you all here? Chun Zhao sat up. Fei Lai went up and hugged him. Darling, you scared me. Chun Zhao patted her back. Darling, I'm fine. President. Chun Zhao stood up and nodded. Fei Lai glanced at everyone and said, I'll go make some food for you. Chun Zhao and the rest of the supernatural organization all went to the living room. President, are you okay? I'm fine. Chun Zhao smiled. I know why you guys came to find me. You know. Yes. Don't worry about the black egg. I'll take care of it. Is the black egg dangerous? No, Chun Zhao said. President, you know where it came from? Yes. Anyway, don't worry about it. It's a gift from someone. It's not a gift. Chun Zhao's expression was strange. Everyone was even more confused. They felt that Chun Zhao was weird. Fei Lai, I'm going out for a bit. Are you sure you're okay? Don't worry. I'm fine. Chun Zhao stood up and left the manor with everyone. When they reached the city center, Chun Zhao alighted. Just then, the black egg buzzed and suddenly shook. Then it came before Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao reached out and touched it gently. Standing before it, Chun Zhao looked very small. Let's go home, Chun Zhao said in a low voice. The black egg buzzed again. Everyone was a little stunned. They couldn't do anything about the black egg. It was so obedient before Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao's strength was obvious to all. But wasn't it too obedient? Chun Zhao brought the black egg back home. First, there were the pets at home. All of them started to get restless. They all stared at the egg warily. Only Samuel pushed himself up and jumped onto the wall. He looked at Chun Zhao and the egg. After a few glances, he lost interest and went back to his cat nest. Chun Zhao guessed that Samuel saw something. But it wasn't strange. It would be strange if he couldn't see it. Chun, is that the black egg in the news? Yes. It looks bigger than the one on TV. Yes. Chun Zhao nodded. What is it? Is it dangerous to the children at home? Chun Zhao scratched his head. Remember that thing I told you? What thing? Fei Lai didn't understand what Chun Zhao was referring to. About me, another woman besides you. It's a demon, and it doesn't exist in this world. That's the problem. It's our child. Chun Zhao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chun Zhao had told Fei Lai about him and burial. It was something that existed in dreams, or it could be said that the soul had cheated. Every time Chun Zhao entered the dream, he would be dragged into hell by burial. And this egg was the child he had with Beryl. That's right. This was a hybrid between human and devil. But that was where the problem lay. This black egg was not pregnant with a demon. It was a human. From Beryl's perception, their child was an ordinary human child with no talent at all. This was also why Belphegor had sent the child to Chun Zhao. Humans could not survive in hell. At the very least, this kind of untalented human child. Unless Beryl protected the child forever. But Beryl clearly wouldn't do that. Humans belong to the human world. Fei Lai wasn't jealous, because she had never seen Beryl as a love rival. After all, she had always thought that her man was having an erotic dream. But now, in his erotic dream, he actually had a child. This was rather awkward. Fei Lai sorted out her emotions. What do we do now? I mean your child. I don't know. She didn't even tell me when the child will come out. Is it a boy or a girl? I don't know. Chun Zhao still didn't know anything. Then should we cover him if it's windy or raining? In the end, Chun Zhao still covered the black egg with a curtain. Fei Lai felt strange. Her man had cheated on a demon from hell. Then there was only one egg left. She actually wanted to express her emotions. For example, jealousy. But after thinking for a long time, she couldn't form such an emotion. If Chun Zhao cheated on a woman in real life, Fei Lai would definitely be furious with Chun Zhao. Maybe they would go their separate ways. However, she found the current situation more comical. In the first few days, Chun Zhao and Fei Lai both paid attention to the black egg. But ever since the egg came to her house in the manor, there was no more movement. After that, Chun Zhao and Fei Lai didn't pay much attention to the child. On the other hand, little Larissa and little Jerlin played around the egg every day. Frigga, do you know what's going on? The crystals produced between different races will always produce all sorts of strange things. Humans and gods, humans and demons, demons and gods, humans and dragons, dragons and demons, dragons and gods. Plus, you're not a normal human, so no one knows what kind of child you and demons will have. I don't know when this black egg will hatch either. Chun Zhao was somewhat disappointed. He had hoped that the knowledgeable Frigga could give him some guidance. But Frigga didn't know much about this either. Chun Zhao was quite helpless too. But so far, Chun Zhao's curiosity was more than his concern. He couldn't help it. It was hard for anyone to have other emotions towards an egg, even if the egg was his child. Chun Zhao tried to love his third child as much as he loved little Jerlin and little Larissa. But he really couldn't help it. Emotions could only be produced by interacting with someone. He definitely couldn't feel anything for an egg. His mother said he's an ordinary child. Even gods can't predict every child's talent. Demons can't either. Frigga looked at Chun Zhao. Do you want this child to be ordinary or extraordinary? If there are no other children in the family, I want him to be an ordinary child, Chen Zhao said. But now, all the kids in my family have extraordinary abilities. I actually hope that he has his own talent too. Chen Zhao said. But Chen Zhao didn't have the final say on awakening talent. Take Fei Lai, for example. She really wanted to become a spiritualist, but she didn't have this talent and hadn't awakened it. Even Chen Zhao couldn't change this result. He could give Fei Lai extraordinary abilities, but this wasn't a good idea and it wouldn't have a good result. So Chen Zhao never did this. Chapter 3300. In this society, special people were the minority. But in this family, ordinary people were the minority. Chen Zhao hoped that the child would be capable and talented. Not an ordinary person. Do you have a way for ordinary people to obtain abilities? Chen Zhao asked. Frig glanced at him. Don't you have one too? Why are you asking me? You and I both know the answer. Chen Zhao fell silent. Of course, it was possible for ordinary people to obtain abilities, at least for the current Chen Zhao. But there had to be a price to give something. Maybe it's lifespan, maybe it's something else. Chen Zhao shook his head. Forget it. The child wasn't even born yet. There was no need to think so much. Actually, you don't have to worry too much. Theoretically, the more powerful the parents are, the harder it is to have offspring. But similarly, the more powerful the parents are, the harder it is to have mediocre offspring. At this moment, a car arrived outside the door. You have a guest. Chen Zhao nodded. The car had already entered the gate. Hi, Chen. Stephen alighted from the car. Chen Zhao greeted him too. Stephen suddenly realized that there was a huge black egg floating behind Chen Zhao. Huh, what's that? Is it the thing from yesterday's news? Why is it here? Did you forget? I'm an expert at dealing with these things. Fine. Why are you here today? I'm here to see you. Do I need a reason to come? You don't need a reason to visit me, but you definitely won't come during your busiest time. Last time, you didn't even have time to call. I've already edited 3 episodes, Stephen said. We can find a TV station and video platform to broadcast it now. Actually, with Stephen's fame and commercial value, even if he didn't film anything, people would still invest. They might even sell it for a good price. But Stephen clearly didn't want to do that. He preferred to edit the finished product first. Then, he would sell it for a good price. Of course, he also believed that his work could be sold for a better price. Today, Stephen had come with a sample for Chen Zhao to see. The 3 episodes of the documentary started with Priest Wu. First, Stephen entered the camera and met his old friend, Priest Wu. During their conversation, Stephen saw a statue of a strange beast. From Priest Wu's explanation, Stephen also learned about the existence of Tongyu. The first episode only gave Tongyu a glimpse. However, in this episode, the function of the prison was already explained, guarding the cracks of hell and preventing existences filled with malice towards humans from entering the human world. This episode led to the main storyline of the story, and, at the same time, it made the audience interested in the story. This was because most of the people in the world only knew about the spiritual world, but they didn't know much about it. Therefore, people were filled with curiosity about the supernatural world. Stephen's 2 documentaries in a row were actually reaping this bonus. The market was short of resources, and he had the resources in this area. Therefore, as long as the filming was not bad, there was almost no loss. Plus Stephen's fame. Naturally, it would generate even more topics of discussion. Chen Zhao watched all 3 episodes. Even if he knew the entire plot of the story, he was still interested in the content that followed, not to mention those who had not read the main storyline. So, Chen Zhao still made some comments from the audience's perspective. I've already released the news. In a few days, there will be TV stations coming to discuss buying the broadcasting rights. I've given the broadcasting rights to China, to Wang. He's more familiar with China than me. With the Amman chapter as a foundation, this Tongyu chapter would definitely be more expensive than the Amman chapter. After all, the social impact of the Amman chapter was immeasurable. It was far more than what the TV stations had bought it for. This time, Chen Zhao and Stephen were prepared to make a fortune. As for the negotiations, Chen Zhao didn't have to worry about them. Stephen had a more professional team. Chen, remember what we talked about before? We're going to form a world supernatural fighting league. Yes. Have you contacted the Heavenly Master? Yes, I've contacted him. There's also Bifla and 23rd Blood Mary. We've contacted them, but they asked me to form a team first. Nonsense. Forming a team isn't a problem for us at all. We only need a phone call to form a top-notch team. As the initiator, you are an outsider. Of course, they won't agree to it so easily. You must at least have a team of your own and then contact them to discuss the competition. Of course, I know that. I've actually been looking for suitable spiritualists these few days. I've already found a dozen people, but I don't know if they're suitable. Stephen looked at Chun Zhao. Clearly, he wasn't here to give Chun Zhao a sample of the documentary. He wanted Chun Zhao to be his laborer and help him vet those people. Sure, Chun Zhao nodded. But you said last time that to form a league, we have to have a clear division of levels. Right now, there's no such division in the spiritual world. It's basically divided by realms. There's also some difference between the levels in the East and the West. How do you think it should be divided? First, the level represents the level of the league. Just like basketball, there's a middle school league, high school league, the NCAA, and the NBA. You're definitely not going to form a low-level league, so you need to find a top spiritualist. You need to set a standard and determine the spiritualist level based on their magical power, defense, and attack. Chun Zhao paused. Chun Zhao paused, and then said, I can provide a device to test magic power. First, eliminate those with too much magic power. Those with more than 100,000 are super powerful and not suitable for the competition. They'll affect the balance of the competition too much. There are too few spiritualists like this, and they can't be lower than 50,000. Their magic power is the most suitable in this area. At the same time, we'll test their defense and attack power, as well as their initial combat power and team composition. This will also be fun for the audience. They can't participate in the competition themselves, but they can have fun through discussion and tactical analysis. Plus, the intense and exciting battles will attract the audience. Chun Zhao paused and then said, I can provide a device to test magic power. Chun, you could be my team's coach and partner in the league. You know that I'm an outsider. I don't know anything about this. Take a look at the members of your team first. See how good your judgment is. Chapter 33:01. Chun Zhao and Stephen arrived outside one of his private properties. There were about 10 people in the villa. Actually, Stephen had already made a preliminary selection. Those who were left were the ones that Stephen thought were suitable. Of course, Stephen knew that he was an outsider. He also knew that his judgment might not be accurate. When Chun Zhao and Stephen entered the villa, the first thing they heard was the hustle and bustle of men and women. This used to be one of Stephen's high-end private properties. But now, it looked like a bar at midnight. There was also a statue in front of the villa. Only half of it was left. Chun Zhao and Stephen's faces darkened. After a turn, they saw a few men and women frolicking by the pool. One of them hugged each other and started nibbling as if no one else was around. Cough, cough, Stephen coughed. Only then did everyone notice Stephen and Chun Zhao's arrival. But no one was willing to pay attention to Stephen. Hi, Mr. Stephen, you're here, a black guy shouted, raising his glass. Vincent, can you help me gather everyone here for a moment? Okay, guys, our boss is here. Come over. Following the black man's shouts, the spiritualists came one after another. Why are there only 8? Where are the other 2? Fuck, Derek E. Bayer, come out quickly. Just then, a man and a woman walked out of the house in disheveled clothes. The woman's face was still red. Needless to say, they knew what they had just done. Guys, this is the coach I hired for you. From now on, you'll be under him. Oh, I thought I was the coach. Mr. Stephen, I don't like people restricting me, especially when they didn't discuss it with me. These people were already familiar with each other, so when this person spoke, the others immediately agreed. Chun Zhao looked at the man who had spoken. He was in his 40s and had a big beard. Chun Zhao stared at him for a while, as if thinking about something. What are you looking at? I'll twist your head off if you keep looking. Big Beard stared at Chun Zhao fiercely. Your Chris Sun pill? Chun Zhao asked. Big Beard's expression changed. He's not Chris Sun Peel. He's Li Weika. Stephen thought that Chun Zhao had gotten the wrong person. However, Chun Zhao shook his head. He didn't get it wrong. His expression says it all. Everyone was confused, not understanding what Chun Zhao meant. Just then, the bearded man suddenly charged at Chun Zhao. But in the next moment, the bearded man was sent flying. At the same time, his neck was ripped off. Everyone looked at the corpses that were like a fountain and screamed in fright. Even Stephen stared at Chun Zhao in disbelief, even if he was dissatisfied with the situation here. But it wasn't to the point of killing people. He felt that killing was going too far. Chun, why are you? Prison Peel, Chun Zhao said calmly. He's charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of sexually assaulting an underage girl. He's also an extremely dangerous fire spiritualist. In the spiritual world, he's a wanted criminal that can be killed on sight. There's no need for any warning. At the same time, he threw the head and the body into the swimming pool. At this time, everyone finally stopped laughing. They all looked at him nervously. Clearly, Chun Zhao was different from them. None of them had actually killed someone before. But Chun Zhao had killed someone right in front of them expressionlessly, and in such a cruel way. Stephen, next time when you choose people, you better investigate everyone's identity first. Stephen gulped, but he quickly calmed down. He knew that Chun Zhao was like a police officer in the spiritual world. So, he trusted Chun Zhao a lot. It was just that the scene just now made him feel uncomfortable. You, and you. The 4 of you come out. The 4 people Chun Zhao had pointed out stood out, trembling. Chun Zhao took out his wallet and stuffed $1,000 into one of their hands. Split the money among the 4 of you. Then pack up and scram. Chun, I chose them carefully, Stephen said immediately. I've seen their spells. They're very powerful. Mr. Stephen, are you sure you want to interfere with my decision? Fine, you call the shots here. Chun Zhao nodded and continued. You come out. Chun Zhao pointed at the black man, Vincent. Vincent stood out. Hit me with your strongest spell. Sir, are you sure? Hurry up. Vincent took a few steps back. His palms started turning black. A beam of black light shot out of Vincent's palms. Stephen almost fell to the ground in fear. He'd seen Vincent use this move before. He'd blasted a hole in a wall. So, he was afraid of seeing a tragedy. But the result he feared didn't happen. Chun Zhao stood where he was, unharmed. The black light didn't even touch Chun Zhao. Okay, go stand over there, Chun Zhao said. You come out. Chun Zhao started calling out the remaining people one by one. There were 10 people in total. At the start, Chun Zhao broke one's neck. Then, another 4 scrammed. Vincent, the black boy, was the only one left standing among the remaining 5. The other 4 stood in a group. Give the 4 of them $10,000 each, Chun Zhao said. Then you can scram. What? Why? You can't do this. Your test isn't accurate at all. The 4 started complaining. They'd clearly forgotten that Chun Zhao had just killed someone. They couldn't help it. Stephen had treated them too well. They didn't want to leave at all. Chin, isn't it bad to leave only one person? Stephen couldn't help but ask. Why don't you reconsider? Actually, according to my standards, this kid should leave too. But he has potential, so he'll stay for now. As for the 4 of them, they don't have potential or strength. Are you sure you want to keep them? Fine. Stephen shrugged. Chun Zhao didn't care about their complaints. His expression darkened, scaring the 4 away. Chun, what about the rest? Hire again. What else can we do? Chun Zhao rolled his eyes. He didn't know where Stephen got his confidence from. He actually thought that his judgment was good enough. He didn't even know what the selection criteria were. To think that he could actually choose 10 people so well. In the end, none of them were useful. The other was an extremely vicious wanted criminal. The other 4 were complete hooligans. They'd probably have kidney failure after casting 2 spells. So, Chun Zhao gave them $1,000 and told them scram. The other 4 weren't strong, but they had some ability in the spiritual world. But they were worthless. They were all over 35 years old and had no potential. The remaining black guy, Vincent, wasn't strong, but he had some potential. This was why Chun Zhao kept him. Chapter 3302. First, you have to find someone who meets the requirements. You can't just release the news through underground channels. Then what do we do? Stephen asked. Have them release the announcement together, of course. Only when it causes enough of a commotion can we build it. But we don't even have a team right now, and the rules aren't perfect. Isn't it too rushed to release the announcement in such a hurry? Even if you quit now, I'll follow, Chun Zhao said. You're that optimistic about this league? It's a brand new league, so the profits can't be estimated, but it's worth investing in. Stephen thought about it. Indeed, it was like baseball, soccer, and basketball leagues. The economic benefits and influence generated by these leagues around the world were immeasurable. Compared to the benefits and influence, that bit of risk seemed to be nothing. What's the requirement for the venue? Regular stadiums won't do. First, it has to be in the wild. But the wild also involves spectator mode, so it's best if it's an outdoor stadium. This kind of stadium will be much more expensive than regular stadiums. Of course. How much cash do you have? Most of last year's income is in the bank. I think it's about $20 billion. I don't know the exact amount, but if it's not enough, I still have a batch of gold worth $10 billion. Chun Zhao didn't know how much money he had in his bank account because it was divided into several cards. Therefore, he didn't really check his balance. It would increase quite a bit every month. As time went by, Chun Zhao was too lazy to check. I could take out about $2 billion. I want at least 20% of the shares. If I don't have enough cash, you can lend it to me. Chun Zhao and Stephen couldn't take all the shares. The scale of the league this time was destined to be huge, so the profits had to be distributed too. Chun Zhao and Stephen would at most have 51% of the shares. The remaining shares had to be distributed. As for how much the other dealers could take, that was up to them. Invest in the construction of 4 stadiums first. It's best if they're in different regions and environments. America definitely needs one. What do you think should be built? Forest land is cheap. Forests also have complex and diverse environments. It's very interesting for supernatural fights. Are we going to set up a single elimination tournament? I participated in a few paranormal competitions. Regardless of whether I'm a participant, a spectator, or a judge, I've always found that fighting in the arena isn't as exciting as fighting in the wild. You can set up an arena, but the arena can be used as an exhibition match. Regular competitions should still be held in the wild. Stephen nodded. I'll pay for the funds first, and then we'll split the shares. The two of us will take 51%, and we must maintain the same opinion. I'll listen to you. Chun Zhao was clearly more professional and had more authority. In fact, Chun Zhao was the one who came up with this idea. Stephen wanted to do it himself at first. However, he soon realized that he couldn't do it alone. He did not have enough capital, nor did he have enough connections. Even his eyesight and operation were not up to standard. For example, in this election, Chun Zhao had killed one of the 10 candidates. The remaining one could only be considered a substitute. The next day, Stephen released the news through his personal social media account. The league would be called the Supernatural Combat League. Currently, there was no division of ranks, only the highest rank. At the same time, Stephen released the news. Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Masters Sect, Mao Mountain Celestial Masters Sect, Kunlun, Japan's Divine Path Sect, Fire Worship Sect, Scarlet Church, and Cross Church all Stephen's social media account at the same time, announcing their participation in the Supernatural Combat League. This was an official announcement, announcing the establishment of the World League. Whether it was for ordinary people or the supernatural world, it caused a huge uproar. Stephen's influence didn't need to be mentioned. As for the organizations and religions that announced their participation in the Supernatural Combat League, they were all the top religions and supernatural organizations in the world. Their influence could only be higher than Stephen's. So far, including Stephen and Chun Zhao, 8 teams had confirmed that they would be participating. Just these 8 definitely weren't enough. They needed more organizations to join. However, the prerequisite was that they couldn't have a political background, at least not on the surface. This was a very pure and commercial league, and it was open to the entire world. Once a country's political power got involved, in that case, the religious organizations of other countries would inevitably be involved by their own political forces. For a moment, both in the supernatural world and on social media, they were all discussing the Supernatural Combat League. Even the mainstream media were discussing it. After that, Stephen issued another recruitment order. Of course, it wasn't a recruitment order, but it was more like a recruitment advertisement. The other top echelon religions and supernatural organizations also issued enlistment orders at the same time. A league couldn't just use their own people. If they were all from the same organization, there would be no diversity in the battles. It would be very disadvantageous, and they would lose a lot of fun too. For example, the Church of the Cross or Dragon Tiger Mountains Celestial Masters sect. If you asked them to find 100 qualified people, they could do it in minutes. But 100 people using the same spells wouldn't be as interesting as a fight between 10 people using different spells. The audience would analyze the contestants' individual abilities, attributes, and magic system, and then match them. This would greatly increase the audience's participation. Stephen didn't have as many connections in the supernatural world as those large sections, but he was still very influential. So, many people from the supernatural world sent in their resumes. Of course, Chun Zhao was in charge of screening the resumes. He might miss out on some high-level candidates, but there were too many people. The first step was to screen the resumes. After screening the resumes, the second step was to send them the chance to interview. After a month of busy work, Chun Zhao finally picked out 50 people from the many applicants for an actual interview. The construction of the 4 supernatural combat arenas had also begun. One was America's Tailgate Forest in California, covering an area of 20 square kilometers. The other was China's Big Mystery Island and Japan's Greenwood Forest. Of course, Chun Zhao had planned for Big Mystery Island. The other one was the famous Holy Castle in Europe. Rather than calling a castle, it was more like a ghost town. During the Black Death era, the entire city died of the disease. Chun Zhao gathered the 50 candidates and started the face-to-face assessment. Chapter 3303. The magic power level of the 50 applicants was at least 30,000 points. This mana value was a standard set by several forces after discussion. Each team couldn't have more than 20 members, including substitutes. Of course, reserve and trainees weren't restricted. Every member had to have at least 30,000 points of magic power. After all, it was a high-level competition. Thus, they had to ensure the competition's viewability and standard. Thus, 30,000 points of magic power was the minimum requirement. Under normal circumstances, the first team members all had between 50,000 and 100,000 points of magic power. 50,000 to 100,000 points of magic power was already the highest standard. Above that was half a step into the enchanting realm. Half a step into the enchanting realm wasn't allowed to participate. The main reason was that there were too few half a step into the enchanting realm. If every team had 1 or 2 enchanting realm experts, it wouldn't be a problem. It was good to be able to display a higher level of battle and more exciting competition. But if a team had a half step into the enchanting realm and the other teams didn't have a member of the same level, then there would be almost no suspense. In that case, there was almost no suspense in their victory. Half-step enchanting realm could not be the standard for every team. This would make it easier for strong teams to attract half a step into the enchanting realm. Strong teams would get stronger and weak teams weaker. Once the competition lost suspense, the viewability would be greatly reduced. Thus, they just banned half a step into the enchanting realm from participating. Now, 32 teams have been gathered. Apart from Africa, all the other regions had formed teams. This was equivalent to giving up on the African market. Africa didn't have the conditions to host the competition. There wasn't enough market either. Plus, there would be regional chaos. If they got involved in Africa, they might be affected by politics. Thus, they gave up on the African market. Of course, spiritualists from the African spiritual world could join any team as external help. As long as they were strong enough, any team was welcome. Chun Zhao glanced at the applicants before him. The 50 applicants all had the minimum requirement of magic power. Their ages ranged from 50 to 20. This was also the competition's rule. The oldest was 50 and the youngest was 20. Both the main team and the reserve had to be within the age range. Of course, The requirements were different for the two age groups. If they were in their 40s or 50s, their magic power would still be around 30,000 to 40,000. Then, they would basically be eliminated. There was no need to think further. At this age, their potential was almost used up. If he was still at this age, he couldn't still be nurtured as a substitute, right? But if it was a 20-year-old young man, his mana value was between 30,000 and 40,000, which was still acceptable. There are advantages to being older. He had enough experience, foundation, and knowledge. If one's strength was up to standard and their mana value could reach more than 80,000, they would basically be able to pass. Even Chun Zhao couldn't be stingy. Of course, there couldn't be too many of these characters. After all, they were not forming a retirement team. There must be enough young people. Young people are more energetic and ambitious. "I'm the coach of the storm," Chun Zhao said. Among these 50 people, there were those who were not convinced, but there were also those who knew their place and were honest. Many of them were older than Chun Zhao. Of course, not everyone approved of him. Those who are not convinced can step forward now. If you can defeat me, you can immediately get a place in the main team and get a top salary. 3 people stood up on the spot. One was 30, and the other 2 were almost 50. Chun Zhao looked at the information. One of them was also an Asian. His name was Shiro Hakashiro, 48 years old, Japanese. Shinkong Dao. He was good at shikigami and swordsmanship. The other was from Oceania. Thibaut Mavizi. He was 45 years old. He didn't belong to any sect. He was good at divination, investigation, and petrifying puppets. The 30-year-old was from South America. His name was Campera. He was Latino. He was a shaman. He was good at support and investigation. "You can work together. You can prepare whatever you want," Chun Zhao said. If they didn't work together, Campera wouldn't even be able to fight. After all, he wasn't good at fighting. Chun Zhao had high hopes for him. In some special tactics, he could play an extremely good role. Campera immediately cast Berserk, Bloodthirst, and Burning Battle on the other 2. At the same time, he set up a totem, Elemental Dispersal. It dispelled all the elements around Chun Zhao. Mavizi and Shiro Hakashiro glanced at each other. Mavizi used his strongest petrifying puppet. A 10-meter-tall stone giant stood up. Shiro Hakashiro summoned a sword out of thin air. Hakuiai Shoshiro summoned 2 more spirit-branded retainers. These 2 spirit-branded shikigami looked exactly the same as Hakuiai Hashiro, and they also summoned a sword. These 2 were the famous Japanese shikigami, easily lost demons. They could imitate the appearance and magic abilities of their enemies or their master. 3 Shiro charged at Chun Zhao. At the same time, the petrifying puppet attacked Chun Zhao first. Boom! The puppet's fist smashed in front of Chun Zhao, but the stone puppet's fist stopped before Chun Zhao. At this moment, the 3 Shiro Hakashiro simultaneously slashed out with their swords. Although they could imitate each other's abilities, it was obvious from the strength of the attacks that the 3 were stronger. The main body's attack power was the highest, while the 2 volatile demons transformed into Hakashiro's attack power was obviously much weaker. Of course, Shiro Hakashiro himself was a top expert. After Campera's strengthening, they all had a temporary increase in combat power. But the attacks still couldn't touch Chun Zhao. Everyone was shocked. Chun Zhao seemed to be ridiculously strong. He didn't even move against such a powerful attack. He blocked it. Chun Zhao didn't move at all. The 3 of them were under his control. Chun Zhao recognized Shiro's ability. He could be an official member. As for Campera, he was slightly weaker. It wasn't because he was a support, but because his support spell didn't make Chun Zhao's eyes light up. Mavizi didn't show his true ability, so Chun Zhao couldn't judge. "Okay, if you admit this result, you admit that you lost. Can you recognize me as your coach now?" The 3 nodded. Chun Zhao didn't make things difficult for them and let them return to the team. Seeing Chun Zhao's ability, the others didn't have any objections. A coach didn't have to be unreachable. However, a strong person as a coach would definitely have more say. The 3 of them with such outstanding abilities couldn't shake Chun Zhao even when they worked together. Chun Zhao's ability must be extraordinary. Chapter 3304. An interview was over. There were still a few people who didn't agree with Chun Zhao's judgment. Of course, a battle was unavoidable. Finally, he finished the interview. Of course, 30 out of 50 people would be chosen as official members. The probability of passing was quite high. No, it should be 29. Chun Zhao had left one as a substitute. Chun Zhao signed the contract for them. This contract was not only legally binding, but also magically binding. Since they were playing for real, they naturally had to follow the proper procedures. The next step was to deal with the matters of the 4 arenas. Chun Zhao went to find Felwood Scott. They were all old acquaintances, and it was a big project. Besides, Felwood Scott's construction quality was guaranteed. Felwood Scott naturally gave him a friendly price. He had saved tens of millions of dollars. These tens of millions of USD were not a lot for the overall investment. He had heard that this project was for the Supernatural Combat League. Hearing that Chun Zhao was a major shareholder, Felwood Scott also wanted to invest some money. Chun Zhao gave him a small share. After all, Felwood was an outsider with no connections or influence. Giving him a 1% share was already a lot. Chun, did you see the viewership report I sent you? Not yet. I don't understand it either. So far, 4 episodes have been aired. The highest ratings for the second season have already reached the highest ratings for the first season. The average ratings have also surpassed last year's average. Only 4 episodes have been aired. It's too early to talk about the average viewership. No, we haven't even reached the climax yet, but we've already reached the peak of the first season. This means that the audience is increasing, which is a good sign. How's the income from this documentary? It's twice as much as the first season. It's a pity I didn't invest in this documentary. Back then, Chun Zhao had given Steven a chance to invest. Steven didn't ask for it himself. This time, he was purely helping. For the same pay, the number of people inviting him to film could line up from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Now, Steven was synonymous with success. Whatever they filmed would be popular, and whatever they filmed would be profitable. In the past, almost all the documentaries had lost money. But Steven had opened up a whole new era of documentaries. Of course, it would be an exaggeration to say that he was the one who opened it. He had merely caught up with the spiritual energy tide. The right time, the right place, and the right people allowed him to make it. Chun Zhao was almost done with the matter. He went to the backyard and looked at the black egg. The black egg continued to hover there without any changes. Many times, Chun Zhao almost couldn't help but want to knock it open and see what was inside. But in the end, Chun Zhao resisted the urge. If something went wrong, his son would die young. Chun Zhao touched the eggshell. He could vaguely feel the pulse inside, although it was very, very weak. But that feeling was real. Even Burial didn't know when their child would be born. It might be a year, or 10 days, or even decades, or centuries. 3 months later, from today onwards, you need to start training. There are less than 3 months until the start of the first season. Chun Zhao looked at the players before him. The oldest was Shiro Hakuiai, who was 48 years old, and the youngest was only 21 years old, a native of North America. How much do you know about your current strength? Coach, I want to know what level my strength is in the league, Hakuiai Hashiro asked. Your magic power and combat power aren't top-notch, both in the league and in the entire spiritual world, Chun Zhao answered honestly. Your magic power and combat ability are the strongest in our team, but from what I know, quite a few teams have members with more than 95,000 magic power, while yours is only 85,000. Also, your tactics aren't very competitive. You only have 2 years left in your career. If something happens, you might only be able to play 1 season. So, your current position is the on-the-spot strategist. Your best skill is still seeing the big picture, Chun Zhao said. I hope you can be the leader in the first season. As for the others, I still need to see your training results to decide your final tactical positions. Chun Zhao paused and then said, I've found 10 people for you to fight. The weakest among them has a magic power of 100,000. Of course, they won't fight you with all their strength. I'll choose the people now. Everyone was in an uproar. Chun Zhao had actually found 10 people with more than 100,000 mana points to spar with him. Were they from other teams? But when they saw the people from the supernatural organization, they were all shocked, because this group of people was quite young. The oldest was Gaia. She looked to be in her 30s. As for the others, the youngest might be 18 or 19 years old. Were these people really as strong as Chun Zhao said? Gaia, you'll be in charge of the team. Since it's an away team, you can go in and make arrangements. My team will go in an hour. No need, Gaia said. I feel like I'm bullying them. He could tell the strength of the people before him at a glance. A few of them had magic power, but their skill levels were a bit lacking. No need, Chun Zhao said. Just follow the rules. Okay, we'll go in first. After Gaia and the others entered, Chun Zhao finally spoke. Don't look down on them just because they're young. The youngest among them, your entire team might not even be a match for her. As for that female T-Rex, she's a descendant of the dragon clan. Of course, she won't transform into her dragon form in this match. Everyone was speechless. They felt that the battle was hopeless. Their combat experience is also very rich. Each of them has been through dozens of battles, and each of them has at least 2 or more battles against calamity great enemies. It can be said that whether it is in terms of strength or combat experience, they completely crush all of you. Also, in terms of teamwork, they often cooperate with each other to carry out missions. So in terms of teamwork, you are far inferior to them. Coach, do we still have a chance of winning? Yes, but very slim. Who are they? I've never heard of such a group in North America. Let's not talk about this. We're not completely helpless. At least, I know their characteristics like the back of my hand. They don't have any information about you. This is also your advantage. Chapter 33:05. In terms of Team Storm's strength among the 32 teams, they were at the bottom. Even though they weren't last, they wouldn't be that strong. But they wouldn't be that strong either. The people from the supernatural organization that Chun Zhao had pulled over were sparring partners for Team Storm. The strongest ones in Team Storm were probably only close to the weakest ones in the sparring team. There was another most important factor, and that was experience. Team Storm's battle experience was clearly not as good as the supernatural organizations. In the end, the sparring wasn't worth watching at all. The entire process was a one-on-one battle between Team Storm and Gaia. The only thing worth watching was the duel between Captain Hakuiai and Gaia. After the sparring, Chun Zhao had to train them specifically. After the sparring session, Chun Zhao had to train them specifically, and it was hell. Recently, Chun Zhao had been focusing on Team Storm too. Even at home, Chun Zhao kept watching Team Storm's training videos. He studied each of their battle styles. Another 3 months passed. Chun Zhao could feel that their strength had clearly increased. He also did a few rounds of previews. He also did the drawing of lots for the first season. Steven represented Team Storm and was in charge of drawing lots. Team Storm would be the opening match against Team Fuji of Japan. The entire world was waiting for this match. The first match would be held at Telgate in California, North America. Tens of thousands of media from all over the world would gather at Telgate. As for the normal audience tickets, they'd been sold out long ago. The opening match would start with a large song and dance performance. Various popular stars were invited to sing a few songs on a simple stage. Then it was time to introduce the members of both teams, as well as their general stats and their respective magic attributes. The commentators were 2 experienced people in the supernatural world. They were called Frank and Amon. There was also a professional host who was rather famous in the industry. His name was Dot. The 3 started chatting as soon as the players entered. Frank, this isn't our first time working together, right? Amon and Frank were clearly old acquaintances. But this time we won't be working together on the battlefield, but in the hosting world, Amon said, smiling. Masters, in terms of hosting, I'm your senior, right? Dot interrupted. Dot, if you want to be our senior, be careful or we'll curse you behind your back. You'll never win the lottery for the rest of your life. After a round of interaction between the 3 hosts, the 3 of them got down to business. This is the opening match of the first season of the World Supernatural Tournament. Oh man, Frank, what do you have to say about the strength of these 2 teams? Dot was the first to get to the point. Because it's the first round, I can't make a comprehensive analysis. However, based on the names and data released by the two teams, I can give some of my opinions. I'll pause for a moment before continuing. I know the captains of both teams. They're both Japanese. Right now, there's even talk of a civil war in Japan. Shiro Being has an extremely high reputation in Japan's supernatural world, and he's also very powerful. I remember that his most famous action in the supernatural world was when he led the Being family to seal the Guangdong Demon King 13 years ago. As for Team Fuji's captain, Shindo Yuki, although he's young, he's the most outstanding spiritualist of the new generation. Moreover, he has Dai Tengu, who's also known as the god Shikigami. The hosts analyze from the captains of both teams to the team members. The configuration of Team Storm from North America is clearly a combination of offense and defense. Their battles are obviously more towards the medium and long term. There's something special about this team, and that's that they're not suited for scatter battles. Team Fuji from Japan belongs to the Hermit Killer style. With 3 invisibility masters and 4 kendo experts, they have extremely powerful destructive power. They'll definitely have the upper hand in small to medium team battles. In addition, the Tailgate Arena is filled with forests. Although it's the home ground of Team Storm from North America, it's very suitable for the Hermit Killer styles configuration. Oh man, if you were in their shoes, what do you think of their chances of winning? Team Storm from North America has a 40% chance of winning, while Team Fuji from Japan has a 60% chance of winning, Man replied. Now that we're done talking about the players of both teams, let's talk about the coaching teams of both teams. The head coach of Team Fuji from Japan is Zhao Tianshi from Huaxia. Basically, everyone in the spiritual world knows him. He's said to be the future leader of Huaxia's spiritual world under the Heavenly Master. I wonder what kind of price Team Fuji from Japan paid to hire Mr. Zhao. As for the coach of Team Storm from North America, the only information that has been released so far is that he's also from Huaxia. Speaking of which, it's very interesting. The captains of both teams are from Japan, while the head coach is from Huaxia. Do either of you have detailed information on the coach of Team Storm from North America? Not entirely. Zhang Tianshi from Huaxia once mentioned the coach of Team Storm in an interview. He said that they fought side by side before and that he's a very powerful spiritualist. Although most of the things said in such interviews are just commercial flattery, it's certain that the head coach of Team Storm is definitely not a weakling. The so-called fighting side by side means that they've worked together or fought under Zhang Tianshi's leadership. Even if there's a possibility of commercial flattery, he's definitely not weak. Team Fuji from Japan has already entered the arena. According to the rules, the away teams will enter 30 minutes earlier to familiarize themselves with the arena and deploy first. As you can see, Team Fuji has split their 10 starting members into 4 teams, 2, 2, 3, and 4. Team North America has also entered. They've used 3 teams, 3, 34. There are 20 mana potions in the arena. These are all very important resources in a real battle. Therefore, they'll definitely explore the map first and then start looking for mana potions. The 2 teams have met on the northern slope of the forest. Team Fuji has 2 people, while Team North America has 3. They're fighting. Team Fuji has launched a sneak attack first. On the big screen, a terrifying sword light sliced through the air without any warning. The audience gasped. This was something that could only be seen in CGI. But now, it was displayed before the tens of thousands of people in the stadium and billions of people around the world. Everyone cried out in alarm. Chen Zhao stared at the big screen. He knew that his team could handle it. Before the official match, they'd trained for surprise attacks countless times. However, this was their first official match, their first confrontation. Chen Zhao was still nervous. If they lost members at the start of the match, it would greatly affect the situation on their side. Right now, Chen Zhao really wanted to do it himself. Boom! A red beam of light hit the sword light from the side. In the smoke, no one gained the upper hand in the first attack. After a brief silence, the audience burst into excited cheers. Chapter 3306. Nothing could be more eye-catching than this scene. No matter how stunning the special effects were, Nothing could compare to the realism of this scene. This was also the first public battle in the world of spirits. As soon as the two sides clashed, an intense battle broke out. What a beautiful sword aura. Can Team Beimei dodge it? They dodged it. Wait, that sword aura was aimed at the team members in the back. That was close. Fortunately, Team Beimei activated their shield. Otherwise, they would have lost a member. The battle in the arena was in full swing. The commentator outside was also very excited. The first battle lasted for more than 10 minutes, and it was a high-energy battle. However, neither side seemed to want to lose a member in the first round. Both sides were running low on magic power. They decided to stop for now. They retreated from the battlefield and disappeared into the forest. Let's switch the scene to the other teams and see what they're doing. The commentator continued his work. Just then, the scene changed to an ugly egg-shaped monster. The monster had 3 faces, 3 sides of the egg, and 2 legs. Do you know what this thing is? Come on, you two are the professionals, okay? Although I did some professional tutoring before the competition, this is clearly not within my knowledge. Take a guess. Monster, replied hesitantly. No, it's actually an evil spirit. It's called a spiritualist. Doesn't it look funny? Actually, that's just a disguise. They attack spiritualists, absorb their magic power, and then self-destruct. They're a very dangerous evil spirit. How can an ordinary person deal with it? In fact, it's the easiest for an ordinary person to defeat it. If a spiritualist were to fight it, 80% of the magic power of their magical attacks would be absorbed by it. Less than 20% of their attacks will be able to cause any damage to it. However, ordinary people don't have magic power, so they can fight it with confidence. As you can see, it's very weak in melee combat. An adult can basically smash it. Then can't spiritualists just fight it by dismembering it? Spiritualist bodies are all strengthened, right? When it gets close, it will also absorb the opponent's magic power. So, spiritualists shouldn't come into contact with it, unless you're a strengthening type and can destroy it with one punch. What's the reason it was placed here? It could be considered a type of environmental trap. Not only do the two teams have to be wary of each other, but they also have to be wary of the traps hidden in the dark. At the moment, Chun Zhao was with Steven in a private room. How's the data? The number of viewers in North America in the first 10 minutes was 50 million. Now it has grown to 80 million, Steven said. That's not even half the Super Bowl record. This is only the first game of the regular season. Do you know what that means? The opening game of the NFL's regular season did not exceed the peak value of 30 million. Do you know that just now, more than 20 brands of various types have asked me about the title sponsorship fee? They're all first-tier or super first-tier brands, ranging from sports brands to fashion brands. Steven said excitedly. At the same time, he turned his gaze back to the arena. But the first match, can we win? According to the host calculations, the Storm only had a 40% chance of winning. Steven was still worried about the outcome of the match. No matter who it was, they hoped for a good omen for the first match. 70%, Chun Zhao said. In fact, he cheated, because Chun Zhao also wanted to win the first match. However, Chun Zhao had done it very discreetly. He had done something to Hakuichiro. Under certain circumstances, Hakuei Hashiro would suddenly erupt with extraordinary strength. In other words, the opening match of the Supernatural League was a success. However, the Storm was their team, so they naturally had to be responsible for the Storm's results. A team could not always win. That would lose the fun of the competition. However, they also had to ensure a certain chance of winning. Only then could they attract as many viewers as possible. The match went on and on. The audience was filled with excitement. The data from Japan and China has also been sent back. Japan's Tokyo TV station has a rating of 9% and a 45% market share, Steven said. China has 45% and 26% market share. The rating was based on the number of TVs. The market share was based on the number of TVs that were turned on. In other words, out of every 100 people watching TV in Japan, 45% were watching the competition. On the other hand, 26% were watching the competition in China. What about the number of viewers in Europe? We're still calculating. Judging from the feedback from several major markets, there was no need to worry. The competition was already a great success. It was a global competition. The first match lasted for 2.5 hours before it finally ended. In the end, the Storm had a tragic victory. In the end, the Storm only had one member left, while the Fuji team lost. The peak number of viewers in North America exceeded 110 million. Now, everyone was eagerly waiting for the second match. In terms of business and influence, the competition was already a great success. Just the broadcasting rights had been auctioned off for sky-high prices in various countries. As the nominal major shareholder of the Storm, Steven naturally gave out huge bonuses to all the members. After all, the money he'd earned today was probably more than he'd earned in the past few decades. All kinds of authorizations, all kinds of contracts, all of them made him very rich. Chen Zhao went home and rested for a few days. Recently, he'd been busy with the Storm's training. After all, as the main coach, he had to do many things himself. The competition was also growing. With the spread of various media and social media, more people started paying attention to the competition. Just the authorization for the dolls of the main members of the Storm was sold for $200 million. All the players in the first match had gone from poor to multimillionaires because of all sorts of endorsements and image authorizations. Especially Hakashiro. He'd been an ascetic in the past, but now he was extremely famous in both Japan and North America. The Japanese media did not criticize him for leading the North American Storm to win against the Japanese Fuji team. Instead, they felt that he'd won glory for the country. No matter who won the first match, it was a civil war for the Japanese. His net worth also became a billionaire overnight. Plus, with his outstanding performance in the opening match, he became a household name in both countries. Chapter 3307. The league was flourishing. In less than half a year, the World Supernatural League had become the most valuable league. The value of the North American Storm also increased. But contrary to the market value, the Storm's results were terrible. After winning the first match, they lost 3 matches in a row. It couldn't be helped. The Storm was below average in the league. Nevertheless, the Storm's value increased day by day. All sorts of advertisers and sponsors came one after another. It was as if they didn't see the Storm's losses. Of course, the Storm wasn't just weak. It was also because their opponents were strong. The 2 Chinese teams and Europe's Scarlet team had defeated the North American Storm. Chen Zhao couldn't do anything. The difference in strength was too great. Unless Chen Zhao cheated them all. Otherwise, the obvious difference in strength couldn't be made up for with tactics or occasional outbursts. In the past half a year, Chen Zhao had been very busy. He was almost always in the different regions. 3 more competition venues had been added. Each had its own specialty. This made the competition more interesting. It could be said that every sum of money invested now could bring an astonishing rate of return. Plus, it was a bonus period, so they didn't lose money in almost every match. No matter how bad a team's results were, there were still plenty of sponsors throwing money at them. However, at the start of the 5th match, the North American Storm ushered in a wave of results, with 2 consecutive victories. President, the psionic team is doing something. Do you have time? West asked. What? Chen Zhao asked on the phone. They found an ancient relic. They've been excavating it recently. Their specific goal is still unknown. Has Bayard sent any news? No. He said that only Vestana knows what their goal is. She didn't tell anyone what they're digging. The Supernatural Organization and the Psionic Team had maintained a peaceful relationship for a long time. The Psionic Team was an enemy that the organization had supported. But now the Psionic Team's strength was gradually growing. One was Vestana's ability. The other was the arrival of the spiritual Qi tide. Many people's strength had increased to varying degrees. This clearly wasn't in the organization's interest and needs. The Psionic Team wasn't strong enough to threaten the organization. But the Psionic Team was getting closer and closer to that red line. Therefore, both West and Chen Zhao were on guard. Once the strength of the Psionic Team reached or exceeded that red line, then the Supernatural Organization would find an excuse to start a war with the Psi Team. They had to kill the threat in the cradle to avoid nurturing a tiger. Belster suspects that there is some unknown power in the ancient ruin. Vestana has been in a state of excitement during the excavation. Can you find out which era the ancient relic belongs to? I can't find anything. I've looked through all the documents I could find. There's no information about the ancient ruins. Then let's wait and see, Chun Zhao said. If they really get something big, then we'll attack them and take their spoils. All right, now that we're done with business, let's talk about some personal matters. Guild leader, does the North American Storm have any plans to go public? Chun Zhao was surprised that West would talk to him about this. But since West had asked, there was nothing to hide. Yes, the North American Storm was now very valuable. It had only been established for half a year, but they had already achieved profits and even recovered 60% of their investment. The market value was over $1.5 billion. Investors were very optimistic about the Storm's future. Chun Zhao and Steven's plan was to throw the team into the stock market again. The Storm's current value wasn't because of their results, but because of the North American market. This was also a bonus brought by the market environment. When will you go public? Give me an exact time. I plan to buy a lot. Probably next year, Chun Zhao said. When a financial report for the fourth quarter comes out. The better the financial report, the higher the valuation and the more excited the market would be. Going public blindly wouldn't result in bad results, but it wouldn't reach expectations. Oh, I'll take the store members out to relax this weekend. Do you want to come? Forget it. President, you've left all the work to me. I'm so busy right now. You're slandering me, aren't you? You're the one who said that I don't need to be responsible for the regular missions, and I don't need to manage the miscellaneous affairs of the association. When you guys went on a vacation, I single-handedly finished all the missions that had accumulated for a year. That's not a vacation. It's a conference. It's the same. Are you really not coming? At least before I finish some troublesome missions, I won't have time. The wind and waves on the sea could always make people forget their troubles quickly. Seagulls flew above their heads. If they were unlucky, they might even drop a pile of poop on the yacht. More than 10 official members of the Storm were currently on Chun Zhao's yacht. The preseason had ended. They had a month of leisure time. They'd gotten the last ticket to the playoffs. This also completed the plan for the first season. As for the final ranking in the playoffs, in Chun Zhao's words, they had to do their best and leave the rest to fate. There were always many things that didn't go as planned in the first season. For example, 2 official members thought that they could be arrogant after becoming famous. They broke the team rules and disobeyed Chun Zhao's orders. In the end, Chun Zhao terminated their contracts and kicked them out of the league. They would even be sent to court. This was also a way for Chun Zhao to establish his authority, even if he only planned to coach for 1 season. However, Chun Zhao was also the second largest shareholder of the Storm. He didn't like disobedient people. Hakuichiro, are you sure? Starting next season, you'll be the coach of the Storm. Chun Zhao and Hakuichiro leaned against the railing of the deck and chatted. Coach, I'm not sure if I'm up to the job. You see, I've also coached for 1 season without any experience. In terms of management, I'll give you the greatest help. Next season, you'll mainly be in charge of training and leading the team. There won't be any personnel changes in the new season. You're familiar with the people in the team, so I believe you'll do well. Is this an official appointment? As for the contract, you can have your agent talk to the department manager of the Storm. I'm just confirming your intentions. Before that, I still have some personal matters to deal with. Before that, I can't give you an answer. Can you tell me what it is? That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.